everyone, it's Julia. I have a little bit of a different project for you this week. I have created some projects made from this beautiful piece of felted fiber that was gifted to me by a viewer. I absolutely love it. I've been hoarding it for quite a while. Thank you so much, Lori. It is just beautiful. It has a lot of different silks, like silk scarves in it and different tools. It's very interesting. And the back of it as well has just some really beautiful colors. And I ended up making several different projects, and I wanted to share that with you today. First of all is made with this Sizzix dye flower, the Anonymous flower. This is a newer Sizzix dye. All these things will be listed down below if anyone else is interested in trying these out. But this flower dye has two large petals and then a smaller petal. I first just cut away some of that silk scarf, and I'm going to be cutting some shapes out of that as well as some of the heavier felt. I am just laying these pieces on my die, and then I'm going to run it through my Sizzix Big Shot, making a sandwich and then just running it through. Now I think I used 3 of the larger petals and 3 of the smaller petals, and then several of the little pieces of the different scarves that I stuck in as well. And you'll see the process here. Again, just running some more of the shapes through. I have my felting brush out, and I'm going to be felting this with this tool that has 5 needles that pounce up and down. This is a beginner felting kit. So much fun if anybody is interested in trying this. And if you don't have a beautiful piece of felted fabric like I had, you can certainly go to the thrift store and find a wool, maybe a wool jacket or a wool skirt, and then you can add the different, like here I'm adding that scarf in. It just pops and adds a lot of texture and dimension. You can also add fibers to the wool, which I'll be showing here in a bit too. There's so many possibilities with this little tool. Now you may be wondering, I decided not to use that piece at all. It just didn't work. But you may be wondering what I'm going to be doing with this flower. You can, of course, add a pin back to it and use it as lapel art. But I am going to be keeping these for future projects. I believe I'm going to put them on a bag. I'd love to make a wool bag, and I think that would be just a beautiful accessory for it. I'm going to be making the leaves now, and this is a piece of green, it's a wool roving, and I'm creating fabric with it. I'm just melding those fibers together. I want to have enough fabric to run through on the leaf shape of my die. So I'm folding over, I'm pulling it off this brush, and I'm poking it from both directions. And this little thing I'm using here is a single needle, and I do like to use that as well, especially on the ends, and it's just more of a detailed needle. Here are my 2 leaf shapes cut out of that green roving, and I'm just going to add it to the back of this green wool. I'm just poking again, just poking and melding those fibers all the way through. The more you use your needles and the more you poke it through, of course, the more it's going to stay. Those fibers just go right to the back and just become one fabric. And you can see now how this is going to fit together. And then I go ahead and I do make that second leaf as well. And I've got both of my leaves now, and I'm going to be joining that to the back side of this flower, just tucking that in, and then again using my needles. Now if you don't feel like this is going to be this is going to stick as well as you want, you can certainly hand stitch a few little stitches in there, or you can even take it to your sewing machine and run a couple stitches with that as well, or a little bit of a zigzag underneath those petals. I'm going to add a rhinestone button. My next die is the festivity die that I got, and this is a Tim Holtz die. And again, doing the same thing, just running it through my Big Shot. This one has just one leaf or one pet shape, and I made two of them and offset them. And I'm going to be adding, this is like a fuzzy yarn, and you can see how I'm just creating a center here. So you can add just a lot of different fibers. Of course, the woolier or the fuzzier they are, the easier they are to meld. Added that center piece on that to cover up some of those little fibers. And then I ran some of that green wool through on the leaf shapes, and then adding some fiber to the top of those leaves. Again, you can really add a lot of different dimensions and just a lot of interest. Joining that on the bottom, and again I'm going to be adding a button to this one as well. And now on to the second project I did. I made these cuffs, very organically cut. They're about 9 inches, but they're not perfectly rectangles. I really did some unique things with cutting them and had so much fun, and I'm going to show you how I made it. I have this piece now that I cut approximately 9 inches, and like I said, it's not a complete rectangle. It's kind of wonky cut. I love the back side of this, so I turned little pieces of that back side to the front. And now I'm adding this piece of navy lace. I've got this lace off of a thrifted lace skirt, just adding that to one end of it. Now I'm going to be taking this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to be adding stitches with my free motion to make sure that everything is joined very well. But I love using my felting fiber or felting method here just to get everything really melded, and it looks so much more like one piece. Added a little piece of woolly yarn there in a little spiral, and that same little piece of yarn I'm going to add to make the button loop just on one end, and I'm going to cover that with another piece of this this fabric, turning over some more of that back side to the front. Just really love that look. And now the last project I did was a bunch of journal covers, and what I did was just did a collage on the front of these. A lot of interesting shapes and just a lot of different layers. And I'm going to share with you how I did one of those as well here. I have a piece of, it's just basically a canvas, and I'm starting with tea-dyed cheesecloth. It just really adds an interesting first layer. Cutting a piece of this felted fiber fabric. Here's some more of that navy lace, only I'm not using the trim this time. I'm using the under part, which is like a netting, an open weave netting. Real interesting, just different texture to it. And that green piece of roving there is going to help meld all that together. It's going to be going through the holes of that navy netting, and now I'm just working that in, just punching those fibers through to the other side. Here's a close-up, and you can see it going through to the other side. Now again, I'm going to be taking this to my sewing machine and running some stitches to make sure it's held well. I'm just adding a little design here. Again, this is just a woolly piece of yarn. Shaped it into a spiral, and I'm just punching that in. I don't show how I completely make this notebook cover, but I will link that video down below on how I make these notebook covers, so you can take a look at that video. I'm adding a piece of stitch and tear to the back of this just to stabilize it when I'm at my sewing machine, and using a sulky variegated thread. And taking both of these to my sewing machine now. I do have my darner foot on, so I'm going to be doing this with free motion. My feed dogs are dropped, stitch length is at 0, and I'm meander stitching, adding interesting stitches along the way and just little squiggles. And just catching in some of those pieces. I love using this variegated thread for this. This really adds it's part of your design, part of your embellishment. Now as I go up here, you can see I'm just doing some little loops just to add some interest to it. And now I'm going to be sewing this little fiber spiral. Now I have my darner foot on, and it hops more than my quilting foot. They're a little bit different. This one works a lot better for me anyway when I'm doing lots of layers. Onto my little cuff now. It's going through the edges here, and just catching that lace in. And then adding some little meander stitches, just a little interest to it. Really love how this looks through the felt. And then adding some stitches to that loop just to secure that. And we'll be adding a little button to that. Taking away that's tear away off the back. And this is what the finished ones look like. They're just notebook covers, and the little 5x7 notebook will fit inside. I hope you enjoyed this different kind of video. I have some pictures here at the end. Thank you everybody who's joined me today. These are all in my Etsy shop, except for a couple that I'm saving for myself. Thanks again everybody. Bye for now.